By the time Sam Reshevsky was regarded as the chess champion of the Western world, the adolescent Bobby Fischer was still losing club games against William Lombardi. In a scene that is reminiscent of the 8-year-old Paul Morphy observing the U.S. Championship between Charles Henry Stanley and Eugene Rousseau in New Orleans in 1845, Bobby Fischer observed, scorecards in hand, as the greatest players in the world did their work in front of him at the Roosevelt Hotel. Fischer was 10, and most of those greatest players in the world were on the visiting Soviet Union team. The Soviets came to New York to face the U.S. team in June 1954. Defeating the juggernaut Soviet team was less likely than Rosario Dawson accepting my emailed invitation to join me for a day date at Silver Dollar City. Ultimately, the U.S. team lost 20-12. The Soviet team included Smyslov, Karez, Bronstein, Petrosian, Taimanov, Geller, Kotov, and Averbach. The American team had one grandmaster, Sam Reshevsky. Reshevsky himself wrote an article ahead of the match for the New York Times. In it, he wrote, quote, "The Russian chess team, possibly the greatest collection of chess talent in the history of the game, is scheduled to play the American team in New York this week. Although our players are first-rate by all chess standards, the Russians are favored to win." End quote. He went on to explain just how they became so good, with help from their government, beginning in the 1930s. Quote, "Through the Ministry of Sport, encouragement of mass interest in chess was made official government policy. The best players were sent on lecture and exhibition tours and taught chess classes. Clubs were formed in Army and Navy units, small towns, schools, and universities. Chess libraries were opened. Children down to the age of 6 were taught the rules and intricacies of the game. Because the base was already so broad, the program caught on. Now, Russia generously rewards its best players and criticizes them publicly and severely if they do not measure up in international competitions. Most professional Russian players need do nothing but play chess to earn a good living, unlike players elsewhere in the world. The top players in Russia are recorded as social eminence of a major movie star or basketball player in this country. When world champion Mikhail Botvinnik enters the Moscow Opera House, he is loudly applauded. When he leaves, he is surrounded by autograph hounds." End quote. In his book on Bobby Fischer, titled Endgame, Frank Brady wrote, quote, "In the mid-1950s, the Soviet Chess Federation had 4 million members, and playing chess wasn't just required in elementary school, but compulsory in after-school activities. Youngsters who possessed talent were given special training, often working one-on-one with grandmasters, who were tapped to groom the next generation of world beaters." End quote. Chess had become part of the Cold War. The young Bobby Fischer, who would eventually face 14 of the men on stage, and his mentor Carmine Nigro, were at the match at the Roosevelt Hotel, along with members of area chess clubs. 1,100 spectators assembled, according to the book Endgame. Donald Byrne, of the U.S. team, said later that he was so nervous prior to the match that he tried reading Nathaniel Hawthorne to take his mind off chess. Reuben Fine was also at the U.S. versus USSR match. Though Fine, probably America's second-best player, was not on stage. He was retired from chess and was among the civilians in the audience. Long before Fischer would win redemption for American chess, Dr. Reuben Fine, a psychoanalyst, visited him on the request of Fischer's mother. Under the pretense of Fine wishing to play a few games with the young prodigy, Fine accepted the invitation to analyze Fischer's mental health. The obsession on chess worried the 12-year-old boy's mother. When Fischer realized Fine was assessing his mental health with the questions he asked during their games, Fischer bolted from the board and put an end to the 6-week subterfuge. Brady writes in Endgame that Fischer would give Fine an angry look any time he crossed paths with Fine in the years to come. The humble Fine wrote, quote, "It becomes one of the ironic twists of history that of the 2 leading American chess masters of the 20th century, one almost became the psychoanalyst of the other." End quote. Fischer got his first win against Reshevsky, and his first win against the Grandmaster, at the Manhattan Chess Club. The adult Fischer would later be dismissive of the win because Reshevsky was playing blindfolded, and the two used a now unusual time control of 10 seconds per move. At the 1956 U.S. Championship, Reshevsky beat the 13-year-old Fischer. At the 1957 U.S. Championship, Fischer managed a draw. At the 1958 U.S. Championship, Fischer won his game against Reshevsky. Each year, the distance between Reshevsky and his prime grew, as Fischer grew nearer to his. According to the ChessBase database, they had 3 draws in 1959 and 1960, while Fischer was the reigning United States chess champion. After Fischer's 4th U.S. Championship win, An article in Chess Life hailed him as, quote, without a doubt the greatest player that this country has ever produced, end quote. As Paul Morphy cleared his throat from within his tomb in New Orleans, Reshevsky's supporters protested the claim less politely. Fischer's accomplishments to that point, and his potential for even more profound accomplishments to come, was undeniable. His resume was enormously more robust than it had been when he beat the blindfolded Reshevsky years before. But had it already eclipsed Reshevsky's? By 1961, Fischer had won 4 U.S. championships, though mathematicians may point out that this is fewer than the 6 Reshevsky had sitting at home. Fischer had played in the Candidates, the tournament which determines who will challenge the reigning world champion. But so had Reshevsky, and he had finished higher than Fischer. Reshevsky had won against world champion Botvinnik, and Fischer was soon to have a win against Botvinnik slip away into a heartbreaking draw, though Botvinnik did have a team of Soviet grandmasters deeply analyzing the adjourned game, while Fischer was deeply sleeping. Fischer had surpassed Reshevsky by at least one measure. He had managed these accomplishments before turning 18, during the age when Reshevsky had mostly taken a hiatus from chess. Even so, to call the teenager the greatest chess player America had yet produced was, at the very least, disrespectful of Reshevsky. In chess clubs, the question of who is greater among legends of different generations is a debate that is perhaps second only to the wrangling over the correct pronunciation of Uwe, there being a dozen variations on how the world champion's name ought to be pronounced, and countless adherents to each having righteous certainty that they're correct.
I wanted to give a lecture about someone who doesn't get any respect, even though he was the world champion. It's tough around here. And his name was Max Uwe, or Uwe. And if you live in Holland, I don't want to hear your comments on Twitter.
And this time we will see how to pronounce in a regular Dutch accent, Max Uwe.
Like, I can pronounce it, I just don't want to pronounce it right.
Today we talk about a man who played chess with very clear and straightforward thinking. The 5th world champion, Dr. Max Uwe.
Know your classical world chess champions. Max U.
This is the way we say Max Uwe.
Max Uwe was a Dutch chess player who became the world chess champion in 1935.
So it's Max U. You happy now?
Hi everyone, this is Charlize from Forward Chess, and today we're going to be looking at the new release by Jan Timman called Max Uwe's Best Games.
Max Uwe.
His name was spelled E-U-W-E.
Now, of course, there are many different ways to pronounce Uwe. There's U, Yui, but for this video, we're going to stick with Uwe.
There is a light emphasis on the first syllable of his last name, Max Uwe.
In 1935, the reigning world chess champion Alexander Alekhine and Max Uwe contested an exciting match.
His first name wasn't even Max, it was Maxilchis, which no American pronounce except me. So you better be happy in Holland right now.
Max Uwe. Max Uwe.
Reshevsky and Fischer engaged in what is likely the best of the imperfect tests between greats of different decades. Their match may remind sports fans of Joe Louis's fight with Rocky Marciano, one legend past his prime, facing another yet to reach his. Bobby Fischer turned 18 the year of the match, and Sam Reshevsky turned 50. According to Stephen W. Gordon's book on Reshevsky, the match took place from July 16th to August 10th, 1961, in both New York and Los Angeles. Reshevsky won the first game and Fischer the second, then 2 draws before Fischer won again, then a draw and another Reshevsky win. In Brady's Endgame, he wrote that the two were meant to play a 16-game match. Each was given $1,000 before the match, with an additional $6,000 up for grabs, 65% to the winner. Reshevsky, whom top grandmasters predicted to win, found himself pacing at the Beverly Hilton Hotel during the 12th round as the absent Bobby Fischer's clock ticked down. Fischer had been aggravated by changes to start times. Reshevsky, an Orthodox Jew, refused to play the 12th round on a Saturday before sundown. He had done so before and blamed the transgression for causing his father's death. Now he refused. Organizers realized that starting a game that was sure to last for hours after sundown was impractical. It was therefore moved to Sunday afternoon. Fischer's aggravation grew to anger when a sponsor of the event requested that the start time be changed again so that she could go to watch her husband, a cellist, perform. He protested the new 11 a.m. start as being too early. Fischer forfeited the game. He agreed to continue in New York on the condition that the forfeit would not count as a loss. Reshevsky paced alone once again for the 13th round. He would not be the last grandmaster to wait, as Fischer's seat at the board remained vacant. Nor would this match be the last time Fischer would demand that his absence from the scheduled game not count as a loss. After the no-show, Sam Reshevsky was declared the winner of his match against Bobby Fischer. Because of Fischer's habit of sleeping in and a rich lady's social calendar, the Great American Chess match ended at 5.5 to 5.5 of the games played, or 7.5 to 5.5 favoring Reshevsky when counting the forfeits. Fischer sued the American Chess Foundation and Sam Reshevsky. He wanted the courts to demand the match resume, presumably without the 2 forfeits. He also wanted Reshevsky to be banned from chess tournaments until this happened. The case was eventually dropped. The two faced each other in tournaments about once a year in the years that followed. Fischer beat Reshevsky at the 1962 and 1963 U.S. Championships. Reshevsky beat Fischer in 1965 and drew in 1966. However, Reshevsky was by then in his mid-50s, and Fischer was nearing the height of his power at the board. Fischer's ascension and Reshevsky's decline led to occasional draws, but more often Fischer wins in the handful of meetings which remained for the two. Reshevsky went on playing for decades after Fischer's disappearance from the game, as he had played for decades before Fischer burst into elite-level chess. It is Fischer, though, who permeates nearly every facet of chess.
I'm sure the entire world knows the name Bobby Fischer by now.
Even today, chess clubs exist because of the Fischer boom in the 1970s, which triggered enormous interest in the game. In those clubs that have existed for half a century because of Fischer, he's still on people's minds. Whether it's his explosive ascension and absolute dominance of chess, his fistfight with Paul Banco as Bisgeier played peacemaker, Lehman diagnosing his mental illness, or his anti-Semitism, it doesn't take long for Fischer's name to be mentioned when a chessboard is set up. Every champion who followed was compared to Fischer, and curious parallels can even be found between him and his American predecessor, Paul Morphy. Books and films borrow aspects of his story, like Searching for Bobby Fischer or The Queen's Gambit.
Son creates like Fischer. He sees like him, inside.
Internet contrarians struggle to formulate arguments diminishing the perception of Fischer's ability at the board, while the chess variation he created has become the focus of today's greatest players, even as they call it by any name other than its original. Fischer Random. Fischer and Reshevsky each ended their very different careers about a year apart. In the early 1990s, the elderly Reshevsky and the overweight Fischer each decided to play one more time, though not against each other. In Moscow, Reshevsky tied in his match against Smyslov, while Fischer won his rematch against Spassky in Yugoslavia.